All right, welcome back. Here's our GMC tweet of the night. It's the Steelers schedule. You can see it right there. Mark your calendars. The 2023 schedule is set, and we were just talking about it. A couple things here before we take some phone calls. Chris, 2 Thursday night games. That's unusual. But this year is different than other years as well because they can flex Monday night games, week 13 through 17, and there's a chance that they could flex Thursday night games, weeks 14 through 17, if it's passed, and it looks like it's going to be passed when they vote on it. So that New England game could potentially get flexed out, right? And, maybe this Indianapolis game, I don't know, or can you move a Seattle game to Monday night, even though that's New Year's Eve? There's some interesting things here happening at the end of the season.
I think that New England game won't get flexed unless both teams are completely putrid, because if one or both of them is sniffing around the playoffs, even on the fringes, they're two big enough name brands that I think the NFL is going to want to showcase them for Amazon because it's going to get a big audience. I look at that end of the schedule, Richie, and that Cincy game being on Saturday, and then you've got to go across the country and play Seattle. And then you've got to come back and play another black and blue game against Baltimore to finish out the season. I keep looking at that, and I say, you better bank wins. If you think 10 wins is what it takes to definitely get into the playoffs in a rugged conference, I'd almost feel like you really want to have 9 going into that last 3-game stretch, because it absolutely feels plausible that they could end the season on a 1-2 stretch.
That's where I am, 10-7. I think they're definitely one game better this year, in my opinion, than they were last year.
What's the main reason?
I think it's a better team. Kenny Pickett one more year. Looking at the schedule, an easier schedule, and they have it's more favorable at the beginning. So going through it for me, 10 wins, 1 better than last year, better team. That's where I am, 10-7 right now.
They better go bare minimum 3-1 against the AFC South. They cannot afford to biff any of those non-Jacksonville games. I think it's imperative that they get Cleveland in that home game early when you hope Deshaun Watson still might be knocking off a little of that regular season rust, that game speed rust. I'm telling you, man, I think when this thing hits week 13, 14, they are just going to be, maybe not 13 because that's the Cardinals, and I think they stink. But maybe 14 through 18, I mean, that just looks like a rough and tumble stretch of games. You go back to week 12 and there's Cincinnati again on the road, preceded by Cleveland. Tell me I'm wrong here. I mean, I could see 10-7 maybe, but that thing looks pretty tough after that home date with Green Bay. That's a pretty brutal back half of the schedule.
Yeah, almost exact opposite of last year, where they had a brutal beginning and an easier, favorable ending. And this year, it seems like, other than San Francisco, who they could catch off guard, there's some winnable games early on. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got Nick out in Ohio. How you doing, Nick?
Yeah, hi, guys. I got 2 quick questions. Why is it 2 Thursday night games? That's awful unfair and short week. Second question, Steelers, if the salary cap is, say, $20 million over or $20 million under, what's the consequence?
All right. The first one, this is the first time the Steelers have had 2 Thursday night games. I don't know if it's happened before. Has it? Not with the Steelers, but in general. Has a team played twice on Thursday night?
The only thing I could think of is a Super Bowl champion opens the season on Thursday, and it's not considered like a true Thursday game because they had like all the rest in the world beforehand. And then that would happen. I mean, to Nick's first point there, the reason it's happening is because the NFL wants to make sure Amazon gets good games. So they're putting out the possibility that they can flex it. They're putting marquee brand name teams, which the Steelers are maybe the A1 example of, in those spots, Richie. They don't want Al Michaels moaning and groaning and almost openly grousing on those broadcasts that these games stink and that they're poorly played. As for the second part, 20 million under, nobody cares if you do that in the NFL. 20 million over, Houston, we got a problem and you're in trouble. That's a hard cap.
Yeah, it is a hard cap. I mean, there's definitely consequences to that. Let's go out to Phil in North Hills. How you doing? Yeah,
you just can't do it. That's the consequence.
Yeah. Phil, what's going on?
Hey guys, how are you? Honestly, I think you talk about the schedule. That maybe the teams aren't hard as they were last year, but I think the schedule sets them up to fail. The 2 Thursday night games are ridiculous. And then you have 3 trips to the West Coast And to Chris Muller's point,
well, Phil, let me play. Hold on, I'll let you finish there, but let me play devil's advocate about Thursday. Tennessee is not a good team, and New England doesn't have they don't have Brady. Mac Jones is just a guy, and you get a mini bye off of each of those games of about 10 days rest. So there is a flip side to that coin.
And both Thursday games are at home.
Right, and they're back-to-back. I understand that because they play Sunday and Thursday. But I just think physically it wears the team down. And again, to Chris's point, those last 3 games, man, that's brutal. I don't see them winning 10 games. I really don't.
It's brutal, but history, Chris, Baltimore. Who knows if Lamar Jackson's going to be in those games at the end? And I still think it's going to come down. Potentially 3 teams from the Steelers division can make the postseason, but I think it potentially might come down to Steelers and Baltimore, who gets in if you have the Bengals winning the division.
Man, I would not sleep on Cleveland. I know everyone wants to bury them and say this Deshaun Watson thing is going to completely submarine the franchise and tank them and everything else. And maybe it will. I mean, maybe they are going to just have purchased a true lemon here. But I would beware Cleveland, because if he gets himself right, that is still a very talented roster, particularly in terms of high-end defensive players like Garrett and Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper. If Deshaun Watson's right, they are going to be a potential big problem.
All right, let's go out to Jimmy in Point Breeze. How you doing, Jimmy?
Good. Hey, Richie. Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
Hey, Richie, I still got Bucco fever.
Me too. It's tough when they lose 9 out of 10.
I read an article in the Trib that said that the Buccos were still trying to focus on Henry Davis and Andy Rodriguez behind the plate. And I really think they should spend some time getting those guys some experience at first base. Because when you look at the future, Carlos Santana, he's played great defensively, but he's 37. Mason Martin doesn't look like he's going to be the real answer. Malcolm Nunez, maybe, we'll see. But if these guys are going to be part of your future, I feel like if we're going to get them both playing on the field at the same time, we got to split them up what positions they're playing. What do you guys think?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but we've seen those position switches, and they've failed some of the times. With Pedro Alvarez is the one I can think of most recently. I mean, do these guys want to switch? Can they switch? Or can they be a first baseman? It's more than being able to catch the ball. It's footwork. It's being in the right position. Do they have the instincts to do that, to play that position?
Davis is going to be a DH first baseman. I mean, I don't even think that's necessarily some news flash here. I think Rodriguez is the guy they want to stick at catcher. I don't even think anyone takes seriously the notion that Henry Davis can or will. I just think it's almost an accepted fact that when he comes up to the big club, he's going to primarily end up playing first base and he'll DH. They like him. They drafted him 1-1 for the bat. Now, you can argue if the guy isn't going to stick at catcher, was that a really useful pick? And that's a different discussion. Or you could also argue, as a guy at 23 going on 24, should he still be in the minors after he was a college player drafted 1-1? Another different discussion, but I don't think he sticks at catcher. No way.
I mean, that's their plan right now, Chris. I mean, and does he have the bat to be a first baseman? You want to put a slugger out there. Does he have the power?
He better, because if he doesn't, he is a B-U-S-T bust.
Yeah, 1-1. It's tough. So we'll see what happens here. I think you'll see one of those guys this year, and if they continue to fail, maybe both the guys at the end of the year. I would imagine right now it seems like Endy would be the first guy up here.
I mean, I think he's the better catching prospect overall, and I don't necessarily
just bring him
think
up, because look what you got right now. You can't keep walking hedges out there. What's the guy batting? 4? Like he can't even.
You could play delay more. I mean, there is a point to be made about how few games Endy has caught at AAA and how you do need more seasoning. You need to learn how to handle a pitching staff a little bit better and get some experience there. So I think that's a valid counter argument. Right now in the short term, play Jason Delay. I don't know. Yeah. Austin Hedges can call all the great game he wants and frame pitches. He can't hit.
Yep. All right, we got to take a break. Back to wrap things up coming up next. Stay right there.